I have with me Josh Ellsworth, sales and marketing guru for Stahls and Transfer Express, and educator. And we're going to talk about transfers. There's many. I've won every award for screen printing, and I'm all about transfers. Transfers are great, and specifically, we're going to talk about transfers on difficult locations or difficult fabrics, and the advantages that transfers afford for that. Take it away, Josh.
All right. Thank you all for joining. Many familiar faces that have been to the shop talks or some of the educational classes, so good to see you all. First off, I'd like to just think differently about why we set out to do these applications. And this really allows us to have competitive insulation versus other people that are in the market. Really leveraging the power of the heat press and the technology that is out there, going through the work to decorate these difficult products or difficult locations is going to help you not only separate from the pack, but keep that separation over the long haul. So you all showing up and investing your time, working on the business, your time and education, hopefully we can make a little bit of a difference. And today we're going to talk a lot about shoes. That just happens to be the topic. It could be any product, and we'll talk at the end about some of the more difficult applications. But today, it's all about decorating high-quality footwear. And so, like most things, this started with feedback from a decorator that wanted to accomplish something. And so back in about 2006, 2009, that time frame, I believe, one of the biggest online retailers out in the market selling footwear into the soccer market had a lot of inventory of shoes. It was their most profitable item, and they wanted to figure out, how can I sell more of these? And somebody in their company had the bright idea of personalization. We sell to a lot of clubs, we sell to a lot of teams. What if we could put a player's initials or a player's number on their footwear and offer free personalization, just as a way to move styles that are sitting in dead inventory? And so we were able to work with them and ultimately develop what was the first ever shoe platen for decorating footwear on a heat press. Now we've come a long way since then, but this platen started with one idea and one customer with one challenging application to solve a challenge in their business. And so the shoe platen fits onto any Stahls heat press, and it just drops in with a pin registration. You swap out your 16 by 20, and it allows you to take a pair of shoes and load those shoes to be able to print the side location. And so sporting goods, I think, is one of the largest opportunities for this, and I'll go through the how-to here in a second, but I like framing the opportunity first. This is an example of the concept of decorating cleats with personalization on a heat press. And so I'll pass that around so you guys can get a look and a feel at the quality. And this particular product is just a heat transfer vinyl that was used for the single color number personalization. How much cost do you think there is in vinyl in that application?
Not a lot.
About a nickel. It's about a penny a square inch. And so the cost of the actual vinyl, yes, a little bit of time to weed it, but numbers are probably one of the easiest things to weed in your heat transfer vinyl business. So really all the work was just in perfecting the application. So this started with getting a bunch of return shoes, which was kind of nasty, right? But we had a few different styles of return shoes that we just went, we grabbed some lefts, some rights, just a bunch of different styles and fabrications to develop this. And so at Hottronics, where we manufacture the equipment, we were able to work and cut the size to be able to do most adult shoes. If you want to do youth shoes, you'd have to do just another custom attachment that's smaller for like baby or toddler shoes, but it's possible. We're able to cut this platen, and then we just started experimenting with different heat transfer products. And we came up with that there wasn't just one product that would work with a normal cover sheet. And so we adopted another critical piece to the puzzle that is called a flexible application pad. So this is a rubberized cover sheet. I don't recommend this. You use this for normal t-shirt applications, but it really was protecting some of the TPU materials and the synthetic leathers that are used in the manufacturing of cleats. And so we made this extra large so it drapes over both pair of sneakers or cleats at once. after your vinyl transfer goes into place, and then we create the application, okay? Whenever you're adding this to the equation, we need to add about 15 to 20 seconds in additional time so the heat can go through the pad to reach the dwell time. Now, what we found, and again, I want to encourage you to do lots of trial and error. For those of you that were in our booth, about a half hour, a couple smiling faces before this, I was literally rapidly trialing some slides that were delivered to me. Failing, yes, but making adjustments and trying. So putting in the time, putting into work to create some separation and really specify the product I'm going to use onto the assortment that I'm decorating. And so when we applied the heat transfer vinyl, it stuck, but what I noticed was I was getting a little carrier indent from the vinyl, right? You know, vinyl has the clear plastic carrier. It was leaving just that indentation around this soft plastic as it was warming up, or these synthetic leathers. And so what we did to solve that, I'm like, I got to get rid of that vinyl quicker. It can't stay on there for the full 30 to 40 seconds. Otherwise, I'm going to damage my shoe and I'm going to have this nasty indent. And so what we did is we selected a material that we knew we could just barely tap the heat against it and get that carrier away. So does anybody do any two-color applications with vinyl? How much easier is it when you can just tack the background layer for 2 seconds, hot peel that carrier, and then line up your next layer? And so we use that same technique. With a basic cover sheet, we tacked the vinyl, got rid of the carrier, then we covered it and did the full 30 to 40 second dwell time. And that became a duplicatable, repeatable process that we can trust on most sneakers, on most cleats that are out there in the market.
It's kind of shockingly fast how you know, at the last show, I had a customer, I don't know if we're going to get into that,
Yeah.
Los Angeles Apparel, and there we have these sliders, and we don't know how to decorate them. So I took them over to Josh, and I was like, do you think you could figure this out? And I thought it was going to be like a few months, you know, that he would figure it out and get back to them. And he came back in about a half an hour and had successfully decorated it. So it's not as much trial and error as you might think. And he did that right on the show, which is not the best time to be figuring things out.
Yeah, but I tell you what, whenever you're testing at the show, you guys get really interested. So I think maybe I'll start doing testing at the show, because you're like, what's he doing? Is that working? All those are shoes on there, right? And it draws a crowd. But the interesting thing is, like, you have to be willing to invest some money, because you're going to burn through whatever that unique product is that you're going to try to decorate, and you're going to pick up things. So let me give you some other best tips before we leave kind of the cleat and the sneaker category. Where you place your personalization is really important. Pressure is tough to regulate when there's a lot of peaks and valleys on the side of a cleat or a sneaker. And so you want to be aware, I should say, that you don't want to take that customization way up against a seam or a drop off, even if it's only a 1/16 of an inch. Going too close to that edge and having a drop off there is going to create issues with your release. So know your product that you're decorating, know the available space that's decoratable, and then make sure you set your maximum design dimensions or personalization settings within that space. You can go near that. We don't need any pillows or pads, but we just need some distance from where that drop off next to the seam is to make sure we can get the good adhesion.
Because what is the holy grail of transfers?
The holy grail is time, temperature, and pressure. And 80% of heat applications fail because of inaccurate pressure. And usually that's an operator error, not a machine issue, with loading the item and understanding how to get it flat onto the press.
So a lot of times it's just setting it, but in this case you're saying how you put the item on there or how you select the area affects that pressure, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We're kind of breaking the rules. Like, you wouldn't think that you'd be able to do this, and that's part of it. But how many people wash their sneakers, right? I mean, maybe you do with a toothbrush, or they sell special kits for that. Actually throw them in the washing machine. So I can tell you, I haven't wash tested these sneakers. So if you want it to last 50 washes, I don't know, but I know it'll last on the field through normal wear and tear with abrasion. You guys wash your sneakers in Texas. Note taken. I've never seen that many hands before. All right. So then,
should have looked at their shoes. They look.
I know, they're nice and clean. You're gonna have to tell me how to clean these. I got them scuffed up the other day, and that makes me really sad on these.
You should
Jordan
ask
11s.
who washes their cleats.
Yeah, who washes their okay. And so that's one example. And then maybe you don't serve the sport market. And so we started thinking, okay, there's something here. Where else can this apply? And the first place we went was actually not the shoes at all. it was from products that were constructed in a similar way. And so we were able to work with wholesale companies that sold handbags, right? Same materials, same factories are making these synthetic leathers, not only for sneakers, but for handbags. And so that was another channel. And we have companies now that offer monogramming with the same product you're seeing there, a heat transfer film, onto handbags using a different platen, the same cover pad, the same process. So we master the fabric, we can take it across different markets and different products. It's all possible. One of my favorite realizations of this was when I walked down the street in New York City, in Manhattan, and I saw that the UGG store is offering customization using our heat presses right there inside of the retail store with Swarovski crystals. And so one concept, one video, and I do think there is good education on YouTube. You just got to watch the right people. One video, somebody took it even at a big retail store without ever talking to me or us, and they've adopted it and put it out there into retail. And so, of course, we get inspired by that.
Of course, you can only spell Tom Brady with that, right?
Right. And we get the fashion looks, right? And so here, just different fabrics, and we use the sleeve and leg platen to press this one. So just a skinnier 6x20 platen, and we decorated this one with a metallic vinyl. So all possible. So think about holiday gifts, slippers, Christmas. There's lots of ways to tailor this. Think of unique sets.
And we're not talking a huge expense. Like, what are these special platens? What's the range, you know?
So basically, everything's under $400 for a special platen, $400 per platen. And so when we're talking profit opportunity, I think you're making probably at least $10 in profit per item. And I'm talking after you're covering your labor and your overhead and your true costs. You're probably making $10 in profit per item. So sell 40 items, you're getting a return on that platen.
I wish everything was like that. We decorated. That's great.
Yeah, so some of the ladies, what's the name of this style of shoe? Boonie? Booty. See, I'm not a shoe, I should be better at buying shoes. I just give my wife the money and say, go to the shoe store and pick what you want, right? And so the booty here that Jenna from our team customized, she's a little more into female fashion. She was able to take multiple types of heat transfer vinyl. Again, right on the shoe platen, right on the side location. So companies like LA Apparel, yes, you can get wholesale slides. Companies like Wholesale Boutique sell fashion shoes for females. And so we'll pass this around. So same platen, now we're just layering and mixing different medias with the same technique. Because you got to decorate for summer too, right? So all different types of applications. It's all possible.
All possible, and I might add, almost impossible once the item is made to screen print or most of the techniques that all of us normally would use.
Yeah, and canvas shoes, if you're thinking Chuck Taylors and those type of shoes, those are the easiest. Actually, in Boston, I was lucky enough to go to the NBA Finals this year, and the Converse store right next to the stadium is customizing their Chuck Taylor shoes right in store, again, with a heat press, with special platens. So it's totally possible, totally scalable, and you can create a real experience with it. I think the biggest thing is finding the shoe source, the wholesale shoes, making sure that people aren't just bringing any shoe off the rack, because you want to be able to test and specify it first, but you can build a real business here. And so that's one of my favorite applications is when Los Angeles Apparel, who's also a sponsor, came by with Rick and dropped off these slides. We didn't have any heat transfer vinyl in the booth that was going to fit the slides, but we had just launched our direct-to-film transfer. And we're like, I wonder if we could do direct-to-film on a shoe. Let's try it, because that would give us the ability to have many colors in the logo, kind of eliminate a lot of the limitations, and bring different corporate brands or fun designs to life. And what we found through a lot of testing, and we did some more testing this morning, we scorched some shoes, right? We melted. And so what I want to do is I want to walk you through my thought process that I go through when I ruin something. Other than
we had something on failures yesterday. I'll invite you next time.
Yeah, I won't go through my specific words I use inside of my head, but I'll go through my thought process. All right, so I presented on this a little bit earlier for those of you that were in my class, but I like to call it the heat printing arc, right? If you have the heat printing arc, which is an acronym, ARC, we can approach almost any item with confidence. The A stands for accurate pressure. Not more pressure, accurate pressure. So making sure we have the accurate pressure to decorate that item and we're not over applying the pressure. In this case, we're bringing a lot of pressure down onto a very small area. So if you hit this like I did with 60 PSI, you're probably getting a lot more pounds per square inch on this smaller area versus spread over your 16 by 20 platen. So it's very important you know that if you're compressing onto a smaller area, you need less pressure to reduce the risk of that item being ruined. So A is for accurate pressure, okay? R is for reduced temperature. So when we're decorating heat-sensitive items, whether it's performance polyester or footwear or handbags, we want to seek out a transfer that can apply at the lowest temperature possible. In this case, we're applying down at 290 degrees on most of the products you're seeing for the shoes or less, okay? So accurate pressure, reduced pressure, and the C is for correct cover sheet. In this case, we leverage the flexible application pad or a foam cover pad, a more rubberized cover pad to protect that item from damaging. Now, even when you have all of those things checked, when you're decorating performance gear, you still might get a scorch because some of this stuff is extremely heat sensitive. So I like to say you can firm up the arc and make it an arch with the optional H. That is a heated lower platen. So heating these items from underneath to get to the adhesive can create a very durable patch, a very durable transfer without the scorch mark onto these synthetic products.
It doesn't matter if you scorch the inside.
It doesn't. No, people usually don't care. Although I've seen some inside-out hoodie styles going around. I don't know what's happening here.
Let's not get too crazy.
All right. So we damaged this one. And so the first thing I did, for those of you that watched, and we can pass this around so you can feel it. Some people say, that's good, I'd sell that all day. What you're going to see is the platen I used. If you look closely, you'll see the shape of the front of this platen kind of coming to that rounded point with how I was able to load those slides on. If I were doing a lot of this, I would create a custom platen, right? You can work with our engineers and submit a drawing for your product, and it would probably be, you know, whatever that is, 4 inches wide by 6 inches long, and I would make it so I can actually load these on the side and do 3 pair or 6 slides at once. Okay, there would be 3 prongs coming out each side at that sizing, right? And that's going to give me a cleaner line on the edge instead of what you're seeing. It's also going to help me with my efficiency.
Do you have those in your booth? Because I thought those were kind of cool, the things that do multiple at one time.
Yeah, we have a bunch of different platens in our booth, and we do that for can koozies where you can do, I think, 8 at a time. So you can see some of that products up in the booth. So we damaged that, right? And so we're like, how can we reduce that impact? And so first thing I did is I dropped my pressure from 60 PSI to 20 PSI, right? And I was running 45 seconds. I reduced it to 30 seconds, and I tried that. And what happened? My transfer didn't stick at all. It started to lift right up. And so I just stopped, right? And I just said, okay, that wasn't enough. I'm not going to peel any further and ruin it. We're just going to try one. We're going to move one factor at a time, not both together, right? And in this case, I chose to increase my time. And it didn't stick again. And I said, okay, now let me move the pressure, okay? And I moved that pressure up to 40 PSI. And at the end of it, you don't have a perfect product here, but I want to show you the progress of a lot less damage to this one that most would sell and not even see the imperfection until I point it out. And if I just spent another 20, 30 minutes trialing, we will get to a perfect product. It's possible. And that's with a direct-to-film transfer. So you see, that heat printing arc or that heat printing arch, that ability to commit and do some trial and error, that's going to create a ton of distance, because most of you, if you were trying that in your shop, I'd be willing to bet you would quit at some point. You would say, I'm not going to ruin any more product. I'm frustrated. This doesn't work. But for those of you that stick it out through the dip, when most people quit, you'll end up on the other side, and you'll have pole position, the number 1 position, unique value, and you'll be able to sell at a higher price. So,
and unlike a lot of processes of decoration like screen printing, it's, you know, the weather it's not affected by the weather or the humidity or anything else. Once it's dialed in, especially with a heat press that has air pressure, it's really dialed in, right? If it works one time, unless the manufacturing of the shoe changes, the time, temperature, and pressure will work every single time with the transfer you've chosen, right?
Yeah, and that's critical, right? Because we're trying to establish something that's duplicatable and repeatable, because we put in that work, we want it to scale. And so heat transfers are great because we're not worried about the humidity. We're not worried about the temperature of the room per se. We're just repeating the exact process.
Or the thickness of the print or anything. It'll work every time, right?
Yep, and that's important, right? Because you said the air press, and I don't want to miss that, because the air-operated presses, they just come down and they apply to pressure when they meet the item. When we're dealing with the manual presses with the pressure knobs, great. We sell a ton of them, right? But they have some limitations in that adds an opportunity of risk because it's relying on you as the operator to dial that in correctly, right? We have a digital readout that helps, but it's still more room for risk as we're navigating through different thicknesses.
All right.
I'd love to take some questions.
All right. Let's
Pass
take
this
some
around,
questions.
too.
Can we pass the platen around too?
Yeah, we can absolutely. It's heavy, so just be careful passing it to your neighbor, and I can pass the cover sheet with it.
All right. Questions. You got the guru here. Here's your chance.
I was saying, when you add the flexible application pad, how much time do you increase?
Okay. The question is, how much time do you increase with the flexible pad?
So with a flexible pad, we add 20 seconds to the dwell time of whatever transfer type we're using.
Other questions?
On the shoes, like cleats, can you use the flex style patches and that kind of stuff?
Right, the
'Cause
question
you
is,
can't
can
heat
you?
underneath?
The question was, can you use other?
Yeah, so the doing patch products onto shoes is possible but can be difficult. There currently is not a heated lower shoe platen at all, right? So I would say the side of the cleats probably not going to be your best product to do, the patch products on the side of cleats. However, if you're using the like UGG style boots and shoes or canvas shoes, we do have a heated lower platen that's 6x20. And so as long as your shoe's wide enough, there could be locations you could get to and heat from underneath with those dimensional emblems and patches. And I've actually seen some companies just use the pressure sensitive version of the patch and apply it onto shoes with just hand force. Now, I wouldn't feel confident saying that's going to be highly durable, but if it's a promo item or something that doesn't need high durability, that would be an opportunity for you.
Let me ask. I mean, I think a lot of people here are not this advanced, but if you had a big enough facility, would you actually construct a bottom heated platen like that?
Yeah, we could construct anything custom, but the custom bottom heated platen would be substantial, so the opportunity would have to be substantial.
How does it work?
All right. He wants to see wants to see the platen work.
You mind coming up? You mind coming up?
All right. All right. We got an assistant here.
So what's your name? All right, Dale's
Dale.
going to be our heat press today. All right, so Dale's the heat press. Hold it like this. We would lock it onto the press if you want to hold it in the center. And that's exactly how you would load it. So typically you want to unlace your shoes. You would load a pair at once on the side, and then you would drape this whole cover, and it would cover all parts of the shoe and all parts of the application, right? And then you just position your transfer and apply, and that's it.
Getting hot, Dale?
Got it? Okay, you got it. Thank you, Dale.
All right. More questions? How many of you have already done, unusual items with transfers? How's it go? Do you keep doing it? You're going to ruin some things. Be patient. Stick to it. That's the advice from somebody that does it.
Sorry, we got to do the mic. It's really tough to hear. You're getting all the background noise up here.
Can we use like the screen printed transfers as well on shoes?
All right. The question was, can you do other kind of transfers?
Yeah, so screen printed transfers I probably wouldn't recommend for your synthetic leathers. If you were doing a canvas shoe, I would say screen printed transfers would be just fine because it's a cotton-based material. But outside of that, if you're doing like the synthetic leather, stick to heat transfer vinyl, or the direct to film transfers.
All right, we'll take more questions, but this applies to other kinds of items as well. You mentioned it briefly, but right, I mean, high-ticket items that are difficult, like backpacks and things with pockets and weird locations. This is a great advantage to transfers, correct?
Great advantage. So I'd like to talk to you about some of the more unique items I've done personally or I've seen done. So luggage is really interesting. You want to think about that when you have your press because you need plenty of room for the luggage to hang below. So get a press that's on a stand that's completely open underneath. I've done, I think they're called rack and rolls, like that. You guys that came to my class know I had a side hustle focused on the dance market. Well, I saw these rack and rolls that these kids and parents are paying literally hundreds of dollars for. And so personalization on top of the rack and rolls and letting that big bag hang underneath was an awesome opportunity for us. Tent tops, so pop-up tents. Even if you only have a 16 by 20 platen, I have videos out there that show you how to break up the application and make sure it's straight across the tent. So I've done those for companies and events.
We just did that ourselves, actually, yeah.
Yeah, I love that application. It's high profit. Not many people want to do it. It can do it. Tablecloths, table throws, are another interesting application for branding, even for your own stuff if you're doing a pop-up. I've done a lot of that even with glitter vinyl. Every backpack you can imagine. Let me think. There's got to be something more unique. Yoga mats. That was a fun one. So you can do it. You just got to try it. There's very few things that I don't feel confident in really doing at scale. So I think it's fair to say some of those things. We have some customers that are wildly successful and you really need to specify the product, but acrylic beanies can be challenging because of the heat, but there are some beanies that work well, so you want to do some testing. And then the other thing is we've tried swim caps, like the silicone swim caps. Those were miserable. I couldn't get those to work. So a couple things we can't conquer, but
Not yet.
we tried. We'll figure it out.
Other questions for Josh? All right, how about a hand for Josh Ellsworth?
Thank you all.
Got a whole schedule of things today, so hope to see you again. I want to thank the sponsors, Stahls, Los Angeles Apparel, and Alpha Broda. Thanks for coming.